board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Coulter, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Here.
Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderman Conway, Alderman Villa, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderwoman Cruzen, 20 present.
Quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Reverend Dr. Lawrence Shanklin, Sr., Associate Minister of Greater St. Paul Church of Christ. And you all know his son. He is a marshal here in the city of St. Louis. And we know him by Larry, but he is Lawrence Shanklin, Jr. I know, where is he? Right here. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Welcome his father. Let's welcome Reverend Dr. Lawrence Shanklin, Sr.
Thank you, Alderman. President, let us pray. Oh, gracious and everlasting Father, as we come at this appointed time, first and foremost, we thank you for letting us rise this morning to win another day. We're praying for the president of the board and all of those that are in their respective places, that the decision that they may make today that will be beneficial to all that are concerned. We thank you, Lord, for life. We thank you for your grace and your mercy. And Lord, without a shadow of a doubt, we're asking that you continue to bless us as we stand in the need of blessing. We give you honor, praises, and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you. We'll suspend our regular order of business, take up our courtesy resolution calendar, move for adoption of courtesy resolution calendar, and obtain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd, Alderwoman from the 19th. Would you like to approach the dais? For resolution 123.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board, and to our community. It gives me great pleasure to stand here this morning and offer a resolution of recognition on behalf of the City of St. Louis and this board to a young man who chose a career in filmmaking. He is a native St. Louisan. He has truly crafted his art. He is making St. Louis proud. So in honor of his movie that will be released on October 26th at the Tivoli on Del Mar, Michael J. Larnell is the writer and producer of Cronies. It is a movie that will remind you a little bit of some of the Spike Lee type productions. And what is very interesting and exciting for him is Spike Lee saw what he was doing and mentored him and gave his name to his movie. I just think it's wonderful. It is a blessing. It is a blessing. So as we move forward today in our deliberations, I'd like to recognize Michael Larnell for Cronies. As I've shared with you, he is a native of St. Louis. He understands what it means to work hard. He comes from a blue-collar family and neighborhood. He's directed over 20 documentaries and short films, but this is his major film, his journey into the big time. The movie itself talks about a young man, well, really two young men, Louis and Jack. And they were best friends in childhood. But you know how it happens when along comes a new friend into the mix? And everybody's trying to find their place. So it's interesting the way he has developed this and presented it in this movie. And we are recognizing the screening on this coming Monday, October 26th at the Tivoli, and also October 28th and 29th at the AMC Theater in Creve Coeur. So, in honor of your accomplishments, Michael, we present you with this resolution from this Board of Aldermen in the City of St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So Cronies was like my first feature film, and I moved from, well, I didn't move, but I traveled to New York, to NYU, New York University. That's where Cronies was my thesis film for the graduate film program. So I traveled there, and that's how I met Spike Lee. He teaches there, and he came on board. Once I shot the movie and I showed him like the first 10 minutes of it, he was like, I want to come on board and become executive producer. So we showed it, like, our premiere was in Sundance. That's like a really big festival in this country. So then I just got back from London. Like, it's crazy, like, how this film is like traveling out there. So it was great to come back, and I wanted to shoot it in St. Louis for sure. So thank you all for having me. And yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? I also want to just congratulate you on your career thus far, and tell you that, you know, as a St. Louis and then also as a father, I'm proud of you. Father of four, and two of them being young men, and they're going on to college now. I'm proud to see you out there as a good, positive role model for more young men to follow. Keep up the good work. Looking forward to seeing your film. And again, congratulations for what you've done thus far. Let's give him one more round of applause. He made Sundance Film Festival seem like a little deal, but that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. But congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
I think she wants to do it. I gotta be, you be in the middle. Okay, hold up your resolution.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
No, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Let's give him one more round of applause. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. That will return our regular order of business. Introduction of our guests. Any introduction of our guests? Alderman from 22nd.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I have three honored guests this morning. I have Ms. Kathy Reeves with Enterprise Holdings. I also have Karen Gehring, I hope I pronounced it right, Gehring. You know, she's the executive director of the Missouri History Museum. Yeah. And also, as always, Leroy Grant with AT&T. Welcome. And the ladies is, I think, Ms. Gehring's second time here, but it's the first time that Ms. Reeves has been here, and so welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Good morning, Mr. President and esteemed colleagues. I would like to have as my honored guest Demetrius Al Alfred from Firefighters Local 73, and also Mr. Hans from the Carpenters District Council, Jeff Hans. Thank you.
Welcome. Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I also want to As my special guest, Mr. Tom Hake, also from the Carpenters District, along with Gina Heckenworth with Ameren UE, and Ms. Mavis Thompson, our license collector, and her staff, and Mr. Leonard Johnson from the Treasurer's Office.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to introduce, which I would hope would be the alderman in the next 50 years when I leave here, Brandon.
All right, welcome. Alderwoman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I would like to have as my special guest today Anthony Lancia with AGC and former Senator Tim Green.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to have as my special guest Ms. Mavis Thompson, Jerome, Mr. Johnson from the license collector's office, not license collector, from the treasurers. You want to be recognized? And all the people upstairs in the balcony who have no, you're my special guest today.
Welcome. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to recognize as my special guest the person who gave the prayer today, the Reverend Shackelford, who lives in the 1st Ward.
All right, thank you. Any further introductions? Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I apologize. I also want to introduce my special guest, Ms. Beth Seawright with the Comptroller's Office.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, like to wrap us up?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We're gathered here on October 16th. In 1869, to let you know how far the world's come, the first hotel in the United States with indoor plumbing opened. It was a welcome day for everyone. In 1962, this was the first day of the Cuban Missile Crisis. But more importantly, this is National Dictionary Day, so everyone go home and play with your Funkin' Wagnall tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the October 2nd minutes.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 1st. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Forest Park Advisory Board. The appointment of Stephen Lebendel, who resides in the 8th Ward and whose term will expire on June the 26th, 2018. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 9th, to recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Forest Park Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move that we accept the mayor's appointment.
Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Cherokee Limp Special Business District. The reappointment of John Brower, who resides in the 9th Ward and whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. The reappointment of Mark Overton, who resides in the 8th Ward, whose term will expire on December 31st, 2019. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 9th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Cherokee Limp Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move that we accept the appointments for the Cherokee Limp Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 9th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the De Bolivar Place Special Business District. The appointment of Lance Lacombe, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2019. the appointment of Sid Shavinsky, who resides in the 17th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2019. The appointment of Corey Block, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2019. The appointment of Bobby Butterly, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2019. The appointment of Andrew Blackman, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2017. The appointment of Aaron Johnson, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2017. The appointment of Matt Lieberman, who resides in the 28th Ward, whose term will expire on October the 1st, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Bolivar Place Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Bolivar Place Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Pace Clean Energy Development Board. The appointment of Sid Colton, who resides in the 7th Ward, whose term will expire on May the 11th, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Pace Clean Energy Development Board.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move to confirm the mayor's appointment.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 19th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 1st.
My inquiry was, and I don't know anything, what is the Pace Clean Energy Development Board? I was going to ask the Alderman from the 7th if he would yield and explain.
Alderman from the 7th.
Not Alderwoman. We're not going to.
I know. Alderman from the 7th. Will you yield to the Alderwoman from the 1st?
Yes, I will.
Alderman, if you could tell me a little bit about the Pace Clean Energy Board. I'm not familiar with that.
Sure, and I cannot tell you in great detail about the Pace Clean Energy Board, but I do know that it was a board set up by the mayor as part of a clean energy initiative to provide homeowners and commercial property owners low-interest loans, I believe, to get basically to finance projects to make their buildings more energy efficient.
And is this a citywide, or is this local to the 7th Ward?
No, it's a citywide
board, and there are other members? This is just one person?
This is just one member, yes.
All right, thank you.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Board of Adjustment, the reappointment of Mona Parsley, who resides in the 7th Ward, whose term will expire on July the 1st, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Board of Adjustments.
Yes, Mr. President, move that we accept the mayor's appointment to the Board of Adjustment.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
We'll dispense with line items 7 and 8. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? We'll dispense with line items 9 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 194, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Public Service, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, establishing and authorizing Public Works and Improvement Program at Lambert Airport entitled Fiscal Year 2016 and Project Equipment List, and at a total estimated cost of $25 million, containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 195, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Public Service, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, establishing and authorizing the Public Works and Improvement Program for the Emergency Building and Environs Project at Lambert Airport at a total estimated cost of $400,000, authorizing an initial appropriation and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 196, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, Commission, the Comptroller, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making certain findings with respect to the transfer in the amount not to exceed $400,000 of excess monies that the city, the owner and operator of Lambert Airport, intends to transfer from Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Development Fund in an amount not to exceed $400,000 and containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 197, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and is recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the Lambert Airport lease agreement number AL002 between the city and Trico Properties and Investments, granting to the lessee certain rights, privileges in connection with the occupancy and use of the premises and containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 198, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and is recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the Lambert Airport Electronics Retail Concession Agreement AL214 between the city and HG St. Louis, granting to the concessionaire the non-exclusive right and privilege to operate and manage electronic retail concession at the airport and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 199, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen, and is recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the Lambert Airport Space Permit AL371 between the city and Outfront Media, granting to the permittee certain rights, privileges in connection with the occupancy and the use of the premises, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 200, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, and ordinance pertaining to parking within the Gerhard Lofts Building Residential Parking District, including residents of the 3900 through 3914 Laclede, authorizing the Traffic and Transportation Administrator to designate the location and restrictions for curb parking of residential parking zones within the south side of 3900 Laclede and Gerhard Lofts Building Residential Parking District daily between the hours of 12:01 a.m. and 11:59 p.m., containing definitions, a penalty clause, and an emergency clause. Board Bill 201, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, and ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to enter into a lease agreement with the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis to lease property located in City Block 3748 of the city for a period of 10 years with 2 additional 5-year options for the purpose of creating a mixed-use service delivery facility and other self-improvement activities, as well as office space for administrative needs. Board Bill 202, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance to repeal Ordinance 64210, authorizing a lease agreement with St. Louis Public Schools Gateway Institute of Technology and terminating said lease agreement dated June 9, 1998, and authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute upon receipt of and in consideration a sum of $1 and other good and valuable consideration a quitclaim deed to remise, release, and forever quitclaim unto the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District certain city-owned property known as 5151 Northrop, and which consists of Lot E through M in Block 8 of the Sublets subdivision in Block 3998D. Board Bill 203, sponsored by Alderman Carter, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission of the City of St. Louis, authorizing and directing the city, acting through the treasurer, to issue parking revenue bonds series 2015B, tax exempt, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $48 million, setting forth certain terms and conditions relative to such bonds, appointing a trustee, bond registrar, and paying agent in connection with the bonds, approving and authorizing the execution of a supplemental trust indenture number 5, and an escrow agreement and containing a disclosure agreement and a tax compliance agreement, authorizing the negotiated sale of bonds and execution and delivery of bond purchase agreement and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 204, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Department of Human Services by and through the St. Louis Area on Agency, the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, on behalf of the city, to accept a grant award from SSM Health Business in the amount of $49 $100,000 for the next 3 fiscal years and to expend those funds for a city e-home project as set forth in the grant award agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A, appropriating such funds and authorizing the Director of the Department of Human Services on approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment to expend such funds as permitted by the grant award agreement and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our first readings.
Reference to committee.
To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bills 202 and 203. To the Transportation and Commerce Committee, Board Bills 194, 195, 196, 197, 198, and 199. To the Streets Committee, Board Bills 200. To the Health and Human Services Committee, Board Bill 204, and to the Housing Committee, Board Bill 201. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
The following board bills were reported out of the Public Safety Committee, Board Bill 76, sponsored by Alderman and Alderwomen, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Kennedy, Bosley, French, Vaccaro, Cone, Carter, Coulter, Alderwoman Spencer, and Alderwoman Green, an ordinance pertaining to Maya Angelou birthplace located at 3130 Hickory Street, having as subject matter the designation of the property as a city landmark containing definitions, landmark standards, and a severability clause. The following board bills were reported out of the Streets Committee, Board Bill 141, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for travel in Judith Court from Gasconade to Piedmont. Board Bill 184, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, and ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 900 block of Garrison Avenue at Bell as Reverend Frederick Lemons Sr. Boulevard. Board Bill 185, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Vollmer, and Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 1300 block of North Garrison Avenue as Sheridan Avenue as Miss Tilly's Corner. That's the extent of our second readings.
Dispense with line item. Item 14, Alderman from the 4th.
It's too late to have my name added to Board Bill number 76.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that change. Add the Alderman from the 4th to Board Bill number 76.
So noted.
Perfection consent.
Board Bill 163, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from F, Neighborhood Commercial District, to the C, Multifamily Dwelling District for properties on Finney, and from the C, Multiple Family Dwelling District, to the F, Neighborhood Commercial District for properties on Finney, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 164, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from C, Multiple Family Dwelling District, and J, Industrial District, to the F, Neighborhood Commercial District for properties on Tower Grove. Board Bill 165, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in the city from City Block 3765.05 from B, Two Family Dwelling District, to the F, Neighborhood Commercial District for property on Fountain. Board Bill 166, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, and it's recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 972 from C, Multiple Family Dwelling District, to the G, Local Commercial and Office District for property on North Jefferson, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 167, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from A, Single Family Dwelling District, to an F, Neighborhood Commercial District, to the F, Neighborhood Commercial District for properties on Riverview Drive, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 168, sponsored by Alderman Coulter, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 779 from G, Local Commercial and Office District, to the D, Multiple Family Dwelling District for property on South 7th Street, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 169, sponsored by Alderman Moore, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 3728 from G, Local Commercial and Office District, to the C, Multiple Family Dwelling District multiple family dwelling district for property on West Dr. Martin Luther King Drive and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 170, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property in City Block 3730 from C, multiple family dwelling district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district for properties on Evans and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 182, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, and an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the city to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds for Square Incorporated Project Series 2015 in a principal amount not to exceed $3 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring certain equipment for an industrial development project. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We dispense with line item 16, third reading consent.
Board Bills 177, 160, 115, committee substitute, 176, 161, floor substitute, and that's it.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Coulter, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruson, President Reed, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Villa, 27 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. The Alderman from the 18th and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading, report of engrossments.
We have none. You said engrossment?
Yeah, third reading, report of engrossments and final passage.
We have none.
Madam Clerk?
You mean third report of enrollment? Is that what? No.
Report of Enrollment Committee.
Board Bills 177, 160, 115, committee substitute, 176, and 161, floor substitute.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. We dispense with line item 21 and 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, public safety meeting at 10 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Tuesday, public safety meeting at 10 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Wednesday, housing committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Thursday, public safety meeting, 10 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 26th.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we will have a Public Employees Committee meeting. That'll be Wednesday, the 21st at 10 a.m.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. is the Sumner High School homecoming, the oldest black high school west of the Mississippi, and we're playing Vashon. We don't care about the score. We're very courteous. We always let you guys beat us. It's the hospitality of the Sumner High School. And you can meet a lot of old friends. We ask you to come and enjoy the hospitality and all the great events that we're going to have tomorrow. It'll be about 6,000 or 7,000 people there. Miss Davis, you can ride around with me on my cart tomorrow. At Sumner High School in the 4200 block of Cottage, right by Tandy Community Center. Tomorrow at 10 a.m.
All right, the Alderman from the 4th is calling.
You're all invited, especially you from the 9th.
Alderman from the 4th calling you out. Alderman from the 23rd.
Yeah, I would just like to wish my friend and colleague Antonio a happy birthday. I believe he's 38.
Happy birthday, Antonio.
The sad part is my youngest son is 38. I'm feeling old.
After a while, you stop looking forward to these birthdays. They come too soon. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Today is National Bosses Day, and so I wanted to take the privilege of recognizing two of our supervisors here that serve the Board of Aldermen. First, I wanted to recognize Lisa McNichols, because she's done a great job. And I don't even know how to thank you, Donna, because I know you have picked up an extra load in the last several months. So thank you for your leadership and your dedication to your positions as bosses. And most especially, I must thank my bosses, because the boss I have is the 19th Ward constituency. And I thank them for taking care of their neighborhood, for remaining in the city of St. Louis, for allowing me to serve them, and most especially, I have new friends and mentors that are helping me in the way. So happy Bosses Day to all my bosses. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please add to the calendar personnel meeting Monday, October 19th at 1 p.m.
So noted.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the Alderman from the 2nd and the 11th be excused for necessary absence.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 26th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourns until 10 a.m. Friday, October 23rd.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned.